This episode ended up being exactly what I expected and exactly what I did not expect simultaneously. On the one hand, I went into this episode fully expecting to finally get some answers, which we did, regarding Ludlow's backstory, specifically surrounding his alter ego Mighty G. However, I did not expect what said backstory entails. I never imagined that he used to be an actor that went by the name Ginjirou that starred alongside his Sharpedo in B-movies that appeared to be references to movies like Jaws, The Meg, and Sharknado. Something I find absolutely hilarious, by the way, especially given the titles and plot lines of said films. Moreover, the man who appears in this episode, Mamoru, who plays a supporting role, is not Ludlow's brother or cousin or related to him in some way like I expected. Instead, he's a diehard fan of Ginjirou who does not know that Ludlow is Ginjirou, and he never does figure it out, which leads to Mamoru praising Ginjirou like crazy, not knowing that his idol is right next to him, which is hilarious. Even better, Ludlow actively watches the films and even praises them, pretending like he doesn't know it's him. To the point that even Liko and friends end up never finding out that Ludlow and Ginjirou are one and the same. Now, how is said past related to Mighty G? Well, physically, Ludlow basically reverts to his former self, just with ashen Super Saiyan style hair and more muscles. Thematically, he seems to embody the hero he portrayed in the many films he starred in. He basically turned a fictional character into a real one, exemplified best when Mamoru finally realizes that Mighty G is Ginjirou, something he refused to acknowledge for most of the episode. Additionally, I think the G in Mighty G stands for Ginjirou. So clearly, Ludlow didn't fully retire from his acting career. He is still embodying the same character, but in real life instead of on the silver screen. Though how he manages to pull an All Might despite being an old man remains a mystery. However, while this episode did surprise me with what Ludlow's backstory ended up being, it did not dive deep enough into said backstory. This lack of depth prevents the episode from being truly gripping or compelling and stops it from being elevated into the masterful and fascinating character-centric tale it had the potential to be. It's much like the previous episode in this regard, which also failed to become something truly special, memorable, impactful, or important because it did not focus enough on the backstory of the character that took center stage. In fact, both episodes have a lot in common. They are both fun, enjoyable, nonsensical, random, and mostly pointless episodes that add very little to the story, while also lacking greatly in thrills and excitement, but that cannot be criticized or called bad episodes simply because of such reasons. Especially because they do provide some value character-wise and they move the story forward ever so slightly. They even do this in the same way, pointing the way to Entei and providing some much-needed backstory for a character that we know very little about. I will say though that I think episode 77 is better. Not by much, mind you, but the presence of a significantly less annoying but still funny supporting character, and the fact that Ludlow got more screen time than Molly, and his past was fleshed out a little more than hers, making his episode more meaningful than hers, especially as a character exploration episode, allow it to be slightly superior overall. I mean, right from the get-go, from the moment Liko and company get to Olivine City to begin searching for clues regarding Entei, Ludlow takes center stage. We learn, courtesy of the man himself, that Olivine City is his hometown when Liko arrives at an interesting realization. His ship was called the Olivine, and once Orla turned it into an airship, it became the Brave Olivine. So he named his beloved fishing boat after the city he once called home. And this is the case in Japanese too. So, inspired by Roy's desire to try the local cuisine, Ludlow decides to give Liko and friends a tour of his hometown. Sadly, all the places he takes them to, places he remembers from when he was young, such as a dumpling restaurant, a bookstore, and a shaved ice stall, are gone, with most having been replaced by more modern establishments, making Ludlow and the audience contemplate the somber reality of returning to a place you once knew after many years of being away, only to find that nothing or very little is as you remember. I'm sure we've all experienced this at some point. It can be heartbreaking knowing that something you once treasured is gone forever, swallowed by the unforgiving passage of time. Ludlow does reveal, however, that this is only one of his hometowns. He has several of them since, as a man of the sea, every port is a hometown to him. After coming up empty both in terms of visiting places Ludlow had in mind and finding clues about Entei along the way, Liko and company take a break near the beach. Ludlow realizes that while everything else changed, the sea and the Pokémon stayed the same, prompting Liko to ask him why he ventured off from this city. He says that curiosity, that desire to know what lied beyond the sea, what Pokémon he could meet, drove him to begin his journey. Something Liko can relate to, realizing that Ludlow was probably like them when he was younger. They soon spot an old man cleaning a boat and they decide to ask him about Entei. But he has something more important to do. Something that initially terrifies Liko and friends since they suddenly hear a scream. But it turns out that the old man is just watching a movie about a man-eating shark on a rampage. Sounds familiar. Said shark is played by a Sharpedo, one Ludlow recognizes because it's his. Though the old man happily takes this as Ludlow is also a fan of the actor playing the hero that soon appears to stop Sharpedo, Ginjirou, Olivine City's very own legend. This is his debut film, Ginjirou, the Man of the Sea vs. Sharpedo, which spawned a long-running franchise, including direct sequels with double the sharks, double the Ginjirou, and the clear references to Aquaman, and the not-so-direct sequels that veered into completely unrelated genres while staying true to the roots of the franchise, such as a heartwarming teen flick called The Glittering High School Dossier vs. Sharpedo, a sporting spirit flick called Goodbye Diamond vs. Sharpedo, and a heart-wrenching love story called Longing in Olivine vs. Sharpedo, and even a post-apocalyptic zombie flick called Sports Day of the Dead vs. Sharpedo. Oh man, I cannot tell you just how funny this is to me, just how much I laughed during this sequence. They are clearly poking fun at how absurd B-movie franchises, especially horror-focused ones, can be, with each sequel spiraling deeper and deeper into insanity. The shark motif only makes things more hilarious because again, I think of films like Jaws, Sharknado, and The Meg. Heck, the disaster that is Jaws for The Revenge specifically came to mind when I thought of a love story featuring a man-eating shark. As someone who has seen plenty of horror movies, including B-movies and shark-focused ones, and as someone who simply adores cinema and its history, I cannot help but absolutely appreciate this part of the episode. It feels like a love letter, a comedic one, to the film industry. Though granted, this is very funny even if you're not a movie fanatic, horror or otherwise, since they took normal plot lines and they threw a shark into the mix against all logic. Made funnier still by the fact that the Sharpedo even dress up for the roles they play. So the old man expresses how big of a fan he is of Ginjirou, who eventually disappeared from the silver screen. He's such a big fan, in fact, that he aspires to be like his idol, protecting the shores of Olivine City like Ginjirou did, alongside a whooper in place of a quagsire like Ginjirou had. While Quagsire never appeared in any of the films, it was integral to them, since it would use surf to whip up some good waves, if there weren't any, when it was time to shoot the films. Something that was done on these very shores. I love that the old man, who soon introduces himself as Mamoru, even has a whooper-themed shirt. Also, he says that he is the protector of the shores, so it's fitting that his name is Mamoru, which means protect. Roy, who noticed something earlier, making me initially think that he realized that Ludlow and Ginjirou are one and the same, declares that Ginjirou is in fact Mighty G, which is of course the same as saying that Ludlow is Ginjirou, but Roy doesn't know that. Mamoru, however, does not agree, calling Mighty G an old geezer that has nothing on Ginjirou. If only he knew, right? Roy doubles down on his conclusion, insisting that he's right, but Mamoru refuses to accept it, even going as far as to ignore Roy, to the point that he changes the subject by deciding to take them to the Whirlpool Islands, which is considered a Ginjirou holy site, since the first versus Sharpedo movie was filmed there. They soon get to one of the islands where Mamoru further demonstrates his love for Ginjirou by showing off areas on the island that were featured in the films, even dragging Ludlow along to see them, and by doing impressions of him. Their fun little tour is interrupted, however, when the Tatsugiri, who were innocently floating around on a wooden tub, end up in danger when they are dragged into a whirlpool. How did they end up here? Well, while everyone else decided to head into the city to help with the search for Entei, Murdoch chose to stay behind instead to cook a local traditional delicacy, shirashi sushi. Before he was able to though, the Tatsugiri, for whatever reason, stole the sushi tub he was planning to use for his cooking after hilariously trolling him. Since the tub is essential for the dish, he had no choice but to chase them, aiming to get it back to no avail since the Tatsugiri easily avoided him repeatedly, even playing dead to make him lower his guard, at which point they ran him over with the tub. Quite funny. Unfortunately for them though, their antics ultimately led to them falling into the ocean, leading to the predicament they currently find themselves in. Liku and friends try their best to save them, but they can't, since Floragato and Quaxwell are unable to push them out of the whirlpool with Magical Leaf and Water Gun, and the Kilowattrel cannot swoop in to rescue them because staring at the whirlpool makes it dizzy. Whooper courageously and adorably jumps in to help, but sadly it ends up becoming another victim in need of assistance. There's only one person that can save the day, Mighty G. However, Ludlow is unable to sneak away to transform in secret since Mamoru grabs hold of him, begging him to save Whooper because he cannot swim. Thankfully, Quagsire, who saw the Tatsugiri go overboard, arrives to help. This distracts Mamoru because he wonders if this is Ginjirou's Quagsire, which of course it is. With Mamoru out of the picture, Ludlow is finally able to slip away, meaning that it's finally morphing time. I just love how exaggerated the art style becomes. Really sells the absurdity of this premise. Mighty G rushes to the rescue together with his trusty Sharpedo. Now hilariously, Liko and company reference Superman when they see something approaching fast by saying, "Is that a yacht? Is that a boat? No, it's Mighty G," who surprisingly has no trouble saving the day. He uses a giant wave summoned by Quagsire's surf to close in, at which point Sharpedo fittingly uses Whirlpool to launch the Tatsugiri and Whooper into safety. Seeing all this play out makes Mamoru finally acknowledge that Roy was right. Mighty G is Ginjirou. After all, he came to the rescue on a Sharpedo, aided by a Quagsire with the exact same flair. Mamoru even, hilariously while in tears, dubs what happened the giant sushi go-round versus Sharpedo. With the crisis resolved, Mighty G returns Whooper to Mamoru, leading to a touching reunion. Everyone thanks Mighty G, with Mamoru saying that he really was Ginjirou after all. Mighty G confirms this by saying that every human, every hero has a history, with a true hero having a wide-ranging career in this wide-open world. Hearing this makes Mamoru realize that his mind was not wide open. He was narrow-minded instead, which prevented him from accepting that things change. He boldly declares that as Mighty G, Ginjirou is still as cool as ever. It's worth mentioning that this lesson Mamoru learned about being more open-minded and accepting change ties back to what happened earlier when Ludlow gave Liko and friends a tour of the city, only to realize that nothing is as he remembers it, making this the theme of the episode. A theme is only powerful and meaningful if it is threaded through the whole narrative from start to finish, allowing it to shape and have a hand in everything that unfolds. So this episode was well written. Yet another thing that gives it an edge over the previous one, which did not have a central theme, at least not one as significant and compelling. So to commemorate the occasion, everyone takes pictures together, with Mighty G and Mamoru hilariously posing together. Mighty G then departs as everyone bids farewell to him. The episode then cuts back to the mainland, where Mamoru smiles at one of the pictures he took with his idol while hoping to see him again someday. Meanwhile, Ludlow, who somehow rejoined the group off-screen without revealing his secret, laments the fact that he seemingly can no longer maintain his Mighty G form for longer than 3 minutes, suggesting that, again like All Might, the amount of time he can remain transformed decreases with every use, meaning that he too could potentially be unable to transform at all one day, which will of course be sad. We already knew that Mighty G took a toll on Ludlow, but it seems it's worse than we thought. So, Orla, Molly, and Fried soon show up to reveal that they found no clues about Entei. Upon hearing that they are looking for Entei, Mamoru reveals that a customer of his mentioned that he encountered Entei somewhere nearby, a place Mamoru points to on a map provided by Fried. They all rejoice knowing that they are closing in on the volcano Pokémon. It's worth mentioning that, again like the previous episode, even though finding clues about Entei was the main objective, they ended up being sidetracked for the entire episode and only accomplished their goal at the very end in a way that feels like they just stumbled upon the answer they were seeking. So the episode ends in the airship with everyone about to partake of Murdoch's Shirashi Sushi, which he hilariously had to make on a replacement tub, since his was of course stolen. Speaking of which, he is soon reunited with it, though the Tatsugiri are still on it, leading to conflict once more as he yet again tries to take it back, turning, as Ludlow puts it, the Shirashi Sushi into Chaos Sushi. So overall, I mean, you know what I'm going to say, right? This episode was alright. Yeah, it wasn't particularly exciting or engaging or significant or memorable or important, but it didn't need to be any of these things. Not every episode needs to be a bombastic spectacle or a narrative masterpiece. It's perfectly fine to have episodes like this from time to time, ones that are fun and enjoyable despite bringing very little to the table in terms of thrills, story, and characters. It's low points of exhilaration like this that make the riveting peak so compelling. Moreover, episodes like this are almost never completely devoid of value. At the very least, they provide a few good laughs, several entertaining moments, a chance for the characters to simply have fun, allowing us to have fun alongside them, and an opportunity for at least one rarely utilized and explored character to take center stage in order to let the spotlight shine some light on their backstory, which we were/are curious about since it was either delved into very little or not at all. Episode 77 was no different. We got to learn about Ludlow's fun and unique past and how it relates to his absurd alter ego, laugh our hearts out thanks to the hilarious movie references and the many funny moments, from the Tatsugiri making a fool out of Murdoch to Mamoru's many fanboy-fueled antics, all while getting to enjoy just seeing the characters have a relaxing, carefree adventure that has a surprisingly compelling lesson to teach and that moved the story forward even if only a little bit. It was very similar to its immediate predecessor, though slightly superior, thanks to its deeper exploration of the spotlighted character, a vastly less annoying side character, a more meaningful theme, more funny moments, and a more interesting, at least to me, subject matter. While multiple episodes like this in a row might not be ideal, if they are as entertaining as these two, then I guess we can let it slide. Entertainment is, after all, the whole point of watching anime to begin with. Now I'm sure you're eager to check out my reviews of the previous episodes as well, so go ahead and click on the links on screen. Also, if you enjoy what I do and want to help me keep creating content like this, please consider supporting me directly through one of the links in the description below. Thank you so very much for watching, and let's meet again in the next video.